Hello, everyone, and welcome to what is our 10th episode in a series celebrating the 10th anniversary of IP Inclusive. As always, my co-host for this episode and for the entire series is Jodie Bates, an IT trainer at Boltwade Tennant. Hi, Jodie.
Hi, Max.
Hi, good to see you again. And today we're joined again by Andrea Brewster, who some of you might remember from our first two episodes. Andrea is a lead executive officer at IP Inclusive. Hi, Andrea.
Hello there.
Hi, and we have Gwilym Roberts joining us today. So Gwilym is a patent attorney at Kilburn and Strode and is also a senior leader within IP Inclusive. Hi, Gwilym.
Hi, Max.
Hi, good to see you. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the IP Inclusive Charter today and what firms and businesses can do to support a diversity-friendly environment. Jodie, did you want to sort of kick things off with our first question to Andrea or Gwilym?
Yes, of course. So my first question is, what is the IP Inclusive Charter? If I ask Andrea.
Yeah, why don't I kick that off? So the IP Inclusive Charter is effectively, it's just a very simple, voluntary best practice scheme that organisations and departments can sign up to pledge their commitment to diversity and inclusion, basically. And it's been going since the very beginning of IP Inclusive. It was one of the first things we set up. And we deliberately made it very light touch because we don't have the resources to police or enforce it. And we wanted lots of people to feel able to sign up to it, even if they were only at the very beginning of their diversity journey. So it involves making 6 commitments, very simple commitments that are on the website. And it's simple things like having an EDI officer who's going to be there to try and push things forward in your organisation, having an EDI policy, just acknowledging the effects of unconscious bias and trying to do things about that. If you can, and if it's appropriate to the size and type of your organisation, then doing a bit of diversity data gathering to help with your efforts. And probably most importantly of all, I think the most important commitment is the one about sharing your experiences in these things within the IP Inclusive community. And you sign up to those 6 commitments, and then you can say you're an IP Inclusive Charter signatory, and you can use our logo on your website and your comms and things, and you can get all the updates from us. And it's just a way of sort of telling the outside world and your staff internally that you care about these things. But importantly for us, that 6th commitment about sharing your experiences has meant this has been a scheme that's allowed everyone to learn from everyone else. And it's encouraged best practices, and it's shared them, and it's celebrated them. So our charter scheme is not about punishing people who don't comply. It's more about celebrating the ones that do, and everybody being able to learn from that. And it's been a great way of doing that.
I must admit, being part of IP Inclusive and the
Mm.
advisory board and taking part in quite a few IP Inclusive events, speaking on panels and at events myself, the one thing that kind of baffles me, and I mean this in a good way, I meet other people that work for other IP law firms, essentially competitors, and they are so kind and welcoming. And it's not like, oh, you work for another law firm, we can't like fraternize with you. It's not like that. And it's the one thing, I've come from a corporate background and we didn't have many competitors, but it's like, oh, you work for that corporate company that produces the same product we do or service, and it's not like that at all. And it really took me aback, but it's so nice and friendly, and welcoming. And it doesn't matter if you do work for another law firm, and the sharing of ideas of, oh, this is what we've done in our workplace and this is what's worked effectively, and not judging if you're not doing that in your firm as well, which I think is very nice. And I think that's all part of the charter.
Bolts are signatories.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely
Yeah.
are. One of the early ones, I think. And I think 10 years ago, when IP Inclusive started, people were much less keen to share. And there was a concern that they wouldn't want to. But over the last 10 years, I think we have created a much more collaborative space where people don't mind sharing and realise the benefits of it.
Gwilym, I assume in Kimberley and Strode are signatories as well. What are some of the benefits you've noticed to the firm and your professional life from signing the charter?
Well, as Andrew says, first of all, it's just really lovely to be able to kind of proudly say that we've signed up and that we believe in the whole movement, and it evidences it, and it just gives a little bit more weight to the fact that you're actually doing something rather than just, ticking boxes, as it were. I think one of the other benefits is having shown it to various people. The first thing says, "Oh, I'm not sure I can sign that," because we're patent agents. We read things really carefully and then panic about them. And so, because, oh, do we do this? If we press that button, do we do that thing? And then you realize that they're all doable things. They're all stuff that you can actually do. And it kind of makes you do it so you can sign the charter. So even if you're a bit worried, so it got people reflecting on what they do and don't do for the inclusivity world. And then it got people making some changes too. So it's had an impact, not just a kind of an external impact, but an internal impact as well.
And how do you sort of shout about it, I suppose, internally, from your professional perspective? Is it something that's quite sort of prominent on the website? How would people who are maybe looking for a job at the firm or who are just starting, how would they find out about the charter and the things that you do as a result of signing it?
So internally, I think we've got a signed copy knocking around in our common spaces, which is always nice to see. Externally, I mean, the website's really important. I'm not trying to plug Gwilym Roberts here, but we try and host quite a few things and support in that way, which I think makes it really visible. I mean, we look at it very carefully. We have a very inclusive approach to recruitment across the board anyway. It's just something we're super proud of, and we want to shout from the rooftops.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, from full disclosure as well, managing IP is a signatory too. And, being honest, we could probably do a bit more about shouting out about it these days. I think we definitely made sort of did articles on it when we first signed the charter, but it's definitely something that we're proud to be a part of as well.
If only you had a channel of communication you could access, Max.
This is it. Well, this is what we're hoping to do by co-hosting this series as well, and we we like
writing a magazine.
Exactly. Yeah, sending out a newsletter to multiple people in the industry. Excellent. So, Andrea, where obviously that you mentioned the IP Inclusive website, but where can people find more information about the charter and how to get involved?
The website is a great starting point. We have a page about the charter, and we have a charter FAQs page, and there's also a page where you can look up who's already signed. I mean, we've got 155 signatories at the moment. I'm just checking the website there, so you can see who's already signed and what ranks you'd be joining when you signed up. And then just if you've got any remaining queries after that, just get in touch at contact@ipinclusive.org.uk, or contact me or my colleague Amber Gatto, who can answer all your questions and send you some more information if you need it.
Do people tend to get in touch about the charter, and do they have, what kind of questions would you say are the most common from organisations before signing it, or when they're thinking about signing up to it? What's the most sort of common thought they have?
I mean, people do get in touch and ask. Mainly, they seem to be able to find what they need on the website. The biggest concerns we tend to get are from in-house IP departments, because the charter was deliberately designed so that it could be signed by an in-house department in a much bigger corporation that already had its own diversity and inclusion agenda anyway, and the department would have a bit less autonomy. We wanted something that they still felt able to sign up to and that their overall management would be comfortable with. But often they do get in touch and say, well, do we comply with this commitment, bearing in mind that this is not in our hands specifically, it's more something that's done at a central corporate level. Yeah. And we can have a conversation with them and reassure them about that and say, that is fine because the charter is couched so broadly. Yeah. Yes, you are doing as much as you can, and that is enough.
So things like appointing the officer, is that kind of some of the concerns that corporate departments might have, more kind of things that come from a central position?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is the one that people ask, do we have to have a formal job title, EDI officer? And no, actually, you don't. You have to have someone that you call your EDI officer for the purposes of signing the IP Inclusive Charter. And that's the person we stay in touch with. That's the person we would pass all our correspondence to. And that's the person that takes responsibility internally for making sure that the commitments are adhered to. But it doesn't have to be someone whose name is up there on the website, for instance, as a formal position.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And you mentioned briefly, I was interested about how you don't police it too heavily. You want it to be something that, people can do in their own way and put their own spin on it. But there must be some sort of, I don't know, checks to make sure that people aren't just signing it as something to make them look good and then not actually following through on their sort of on the talk, I suppose.
This is a really it's a tricky one, Mike. It's a very tricky one because we don't have the resources actually to check that. And we know, everybody knows, there are some people who unfortunately signed the charter, maybe in the early days, and have forgotten all about it. And don't necessarily tick all the boxes still. And one of the things that our latest business plan has committed to is doing a full review of the charter scheme starting early next year. And looking at that issue of how do we make it continue to be meaningful? How do we tackle this issue, bearing in mind our limited resources, that some people are far more committed than others. And we want to ensure the scheme remains meaningful for the ones that do genuinely stick to it. We don't quite know yet what we do about the ones that aren't committed. We don't necessarily want to exclude them. That's kind of not a good message to send out. How do we perhaps help them engage better is perhaps more what we'll be thinking about.
It's if I can chip in on that, it's a lot of it is also self-policing. I mean, if you're going to sign that up, then you do it very visibly within your organization, and there's corporate, even if people who'd signed it don't remember, the rest of the firm does. So you've got a whole firm to answer to. If you go trumpeting that you signed it, guys, we're amazing, people can say, do you remember signing it? Are you still doing it? So a lot of kind of enforced honesty, honest by our own team, as it were, which I think supports Andrea. But as Andrea says, I can imagine the resourcing is tricky. Funny enough, what we've got, so we're currently we've been looking at going for B Corp, and one of the things that B Corp asks you to do is to actually check all your your kind of executive decisions against a short checklist. So we know when we have a partner meeting, or its equivalent, we actually have a checklist that we go through at the end to make sure that all our decisions would meet the B Corp requirements if we went that way. But importantly, those effectively time very strongly with the same sort of considerations. So that's quite a useful one. And a top
I was going to say, does B Corp status incorporate sort of diversity-based initiatives and stuff? Because I knew that it's very there's a lot of emphasis on stuff to do with the environment and not working for certain corporations and taking money from certain corporations, but does it also have a diversity element too?
I think there's not a direct mapping, but there's enough kind of social conscience attached to it. And I suppose as a broader statement, actually, this is thinking on my feet here. We perhaps could be chucking in a couple of the charter questions at the same time. It's an easy way, because that's where if that's where the decisions are being made, then having a little checklist to look at the end of every meeting to make sure you've had it at the back of your mind. And eventually what we found is that we don't have to go through it very long because people are thinking about it when they make the decisions, when they make the proposals. It's already kind of built
by design. It's worth mentioning here. I mean, it sounds a bit pathetic, me saying, we don't have the resources to police this charter. We have found that the carrot approach is much more effective than the stick. So if you shout from the rooftops about what the good people are doing, then you find a lot of the others say, perhaps we should be doing that too, and everybody pulls everybody else up with them. And then you start to get, let's be honest about this, lateral hires start looking around the space and who's doing what, who is not performing quite so well, who would be nicer to work with. So I think the carrot approach does ultimately make everybody feel happier, but it gradually drags the whole profession up by the bootstraps.
What could employees do? So anyone that's listening to this, it might be a fee earner, a secretary, other business support professionals. They may not know if their firm has signed up to it or not. So what kind of questions or what kind of things could they be doing to kind of be like, this firm's doing this, or this is on the charter, can we try and do a bit more to kind of help take the ownership so much off of you guys, and put it on to the people that do work for those firms, either to get them to sign up or actually, don't get me wrong, there's always area for improvement. What could other firms be doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because I think individual professionals who care about diversity do have a role to play in incentivizing positive changes in their organisation. So as a first pass, check our website, the Charter Signatories page, and check whether your firm is signed up.
Mhm.
If it isn't, well, perhaps start a conversation about why don't we? And if it is, and you're not seeing evidence of that, then yes, do try and get those conversations going with your line managers and with people higher up about, shouldn't we crow about this a bit more on the website? Shouldn't the logo appear on our website? Where can I find a copy of the commitments, and what are we doing? Are we regularly looking at whether we comply with those? And just get involved in IP inclusive events, because every event you go to, you meet somebody from another firm who's doing something a little bit different, a little bit better perhaps, and you get ideas and you can take them back. And before you know it, you're in charge of the internal diversity committee.
If I can just add to that, Jodie, that's a really good point about kind of sharing out the responsibility across the whole firm. That's completely right. But it's definitely a firm-wide or a business-wide contract, in the sense that leadership shouldn't be assuming that the rest of the firm's got this, and vice versa. Everybody needs to be poking everybody all the time. That's what I think, Andrea, kind of where you brought the senior leaders in IP kind of idea in, was to say, what the last thing we want is for management to say, we need to tick this box. HR, can you go and tick it for us? And so I think that's one thing. This is why everybody's part of the contract. And so part of the senior leaders thing is to make sure that those who do in the nice position of being able to make decisions are actually getting heavily involved in making decisions, and not just delegating responsibility for this kind of thing. So it cuts both ways. I think the leaders need to not delegate, and the rest of the firm needs to make sure the leaders are staying honest and support them and so on. If we all work together, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that leadership is crucial, and that's why we set up the Senior Leaders Think Tank. And I was thinking about it. We set that up back in 2020, I think, which was the COVID year. And we had an awful lot of take up back then, because no one had anything else to do with their time. So they were all perfectly happy to attend an online roundtable about diversity. And so, getting the message out through the senior people is really, really important.
I've got a list of some of this. This was a great thing. Some of the other things I did during that year, just to stay entertained. It's quite incredible.
Absolutely.
Things on my list. Yeah.
Don't want to ask for too much more detail on that one, I don't think. But
no, we had a science fiction book club. We had a debate about whether across a transatlantic debate about whether science fiction is better than fantasy. Which is quite a funny fantasy one, by the way.
There's some sort of blurring of the lines between those two. Are they separate things?
Exactly. It's always a fine line. I think there's more fairies in fantasy and more guns in sci-fi, is how I see it. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah. More spaceships probably as well.
I think I'm digressing. Sorry.
No. Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah. So, in terms of coming back to the actual charter itself, I think you mentioned there's six points. Did you want to sort of briefly say what those six are, and sort of why six? Is that sort of encompassing enough to kind of ensure organizations are doing what they need to do, do you think?
I think six, that's just how it developed. Leslie Evans, who's involved with our management committee now, was there right at the beginning setting up the charter scheme, and she did a grand job, and she just wanted to have not too many and not too much. And when we started out talking about the charter at the start of this episode, I did sort of talk through most of those six commitments. There's having the EDI officer there's having an EDI policy. One of them is promoting openness and transparency, so as to demonstrate, it says, merit-based equal opportunities in recruitment and career progression processes. So again, it's a very high level kind of challenge, but it's just make sure that inclusivity is woven by design through all your recruitment and development processes. There's acknowledging the effects of unconscious bias and doing what you can to tackle that. It's not talked about as much now as it was back then, unconscious bias.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a buzzword
earlier in the series, and I learned a lot from that there's something, several hundred biases that come into your mind automatically the first few seconds of meeting someone.
There is a lot of it, and you can call it more generally cognitive bias, and we all have it, not just about diversity. So that's still there, and I think it's still worth trying to think about that and weave that into what your decision-making process is. And then there's monitoring and reporting on progress using measures and at intervals that are appropriate to your size and the type of organization you are. So maybe measuring diversity stats, but maybe not. It's not appropriate for everyone. And then
by reporting, sorry, by reporting, that could be reporting on their own website or reporting into IP Inclusive, like how?
It says reporting internally in the charter commitments. So, just make sure that the people in your company know how you're doing if you are measuring. But no, there's no requirement to report to IP Inclusive or to publish anywhere. We are trying to do work on encouraging that, but that's a separate project. And again, it won't suit everybody. And then the sixth commitment, sharing your experiences. And it says on the charter to help build an effective network for equality, diversity and inclusion across the IP sector. So, the most powerful and the most important of the commitments, I guess, has turned out to be that one.
Yeah, that goes back to what you were saying at the start, I think, Jodie, about how sharing knowledge has been a much more sort of easier and pleasant task than you thought it might have been initially.
I think the one that people struggle with when I've talked through it with people is half of the fourth one, which is all the measure things, all the put people into place things, but acknowledging
unconscious bias.
Yeah. I think people, I get pattern managers say, how do I acknowledge that?
Yeah. A very literal or legal way of thinking about it.
Classic. But no, it's incredibly important. And Andrea, you make a good point. Maybe I think everyone knows about it now because it's quite an exciting new topic a while ago, whereas now I think everyone at least knows it exists. So perhaps it is acknowledged now. I don't know.
Yeah, I think more people now talk about the bad effects of confirmation bias and groupthink. Those are the types of things that we're talking about. And I think, yes, Commitment 4 is couched in two parts, acknowledging the effects and introducing measures to tackle it. The thing is, if you're introducing measures, then you are intrinsically acknowledging that it's there anyway. And those measures might be simply more objective processes for making decisions. So it's not rocket science, and it's definitely one of the things that makes for a better business.
Yeah, and on the topic of knowledge sharing, and Gwilym, you mentioned this earlier on in the episode about how you host quite a lot of events at Kilburn and Strode. There was one sort of quite recently, wasn't there, at your offices on the case for EDI? What were some of the takeaways from that? And what was the event about, and how was it? Let's sort of talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Well, we try and do something, a big thing once a year, I think is how I'd describe it. And Andrea and I brainstorm early in the year about what it might be. And this one was when we started looking at it, it was probably February time, I'd say, around there this year. And of course, what we were seeing was with the changes in the US administration, some of the messaging coming out about EDI in the US and what was going on there. There was a concern that, are things changing? Is this going to mean that inclusivity, etc., takes a bit of a step back? For a few perspectives. One, because, it became a very contentious issue. And two, because businesses were having to actively potentially step away from aspects of it. So we thought that's got to be, it was breaking news then, but we kind of thought by the time we get to the actual session, which is months away, things might have settled down. We'll see more, but it'll definitely still be a hot topic, which it was. And so the theme this year was to look at the impact of kind of changes around the world, assess what problems they potentially bring, and I think in particular look at the impact on businesses, both in terms of their own policies, but also in terms of basically procurement. Are clients looking for the sort of levels of diversity provision that were previously the case? Have things moved on? And I'll let Andrea kind of complete this, but my kind of take is a great panel. We had people from a whole bunch of different backgrounds, from industry, from private practice, from Europe, from regulatory, and from a kind of a broader inclusivity network as well. And so lots of us. Oh, and also have speakers from the States, and some from Etienne from Inter spoke, which is good of him. Yeah. So a real international view of it as well. And the uptake was, things have changed, but the energy's still there. It's perhaps calmed down a lot from the very beginning. It's quite a frank conversation at points, and unfortunately, it was a feel that perhaps there has been a bit of a step taken back. But it was by no means, as Andrea says, all negative. It was very much lots of hope, lots of let's keep working. Something about underground rivers. I actually can't remember now, Andrea, but I know that was a conversation about underground rivers at some point.
There definitely was, which turned into a conversation about leaky plumbing, but we won't go there. I think something that struck me at that event from the panel discussion and also from talking to delegates at the time, and it's also been striking me throughout the whole of this somewhat difficult year, is that individuals still very much care about diversity and inclusion. And where organisations are stepping back, the individuals within them are noticing that, and they don't like it. Now, IP Inclusive can help to a certain extent because we sort of sit outside. We're still there for the individuals, even if their companies don't feel able to tackle the diversity agenda in quite the same way. But, you know, the desire for diversity and inclusion, I think it is still very, very strong in our profession, which is great. People may be dressing up how they describe that externally slightly differently, and they may be changing the focus a little bit, but it is still there. And I think, so IP Inclusive is going to be important, and that's been a great relief to me to hear that this year. But senior leadership is also going to be very, very important. If we're going to keep that torch burning or the underground river flowing or whatever metaphor you want to use, leadership is important. And it's worth my mentioning here, I think, that Gwilym and I together set up, through the Senior Leaders Think Tank, a Senior Leaders Pledge. And this is kind of associated with the charter, but it's an individual commitment. It's not something the company signs up to. It's what you as an individual sign up to because you're in a reasonably senior position and you do have some influence. And it's a way of saying, I will use my influence positively. I care about diversity, and these are some of the things I will do to help promote it. And those commitments are going to become very important in the next few years, I think. Because individuals in your company still want diversity and equity and inclusion, you leaders are going to have to make sure that your businesses provide that. Because if you don't, you're going to lose people and you won't be able to attract the new talent you need. So a plug there for the Senior Leaders Pledge. Again, information about it on the website, but also a call to people who have influence, who have power, who do make decisions, not to overlook diversity. It wasn't just a passing fad. It's still there.
And the Leaders Pledge, just briefly, sorry, is that something that's a publicly facing pledge as well? So or is it, because you mentioned the underground rivers, I just wonder whether that's something that people can kind of like pledge to in a sort of secret way and say, well, even if the organisation itself doesn't want to commit to this, we still want to, or how would it? Yeah, just wondering how it would.
It is a public commitment. So, you know, we publish on the website the fact that you've committed to it, and the whole part of that pledge is making it public, making it very visible within your organisation that you've signed up, showing that you care, showing your support, holding yourself to account. That is going to be more difficult, I think, for people in in-house teams, particularly where the wider corporation has decided that for various reasons, economic, political, whatever, that you know they can't be as vocal about diversity. But you can still look at the terms of the Senior Leaders Pledge, and you can still sort of make your personal commitment to try and live by those mantras. And you can still talk to your colleagues about it, and you can still come to IP Inclusive events, hopefully, as an individual. And
sure.
Yeah,
so it's like as an individual rather than affiliated to a corporation or a company, because I just think of a situation where if a law firm, for whatever reason, or a company has said publicly committed to not pursuing diversity-based tactics, or whatever, but then somebody senior within that company signs a pledge, there could be a sort of disconnect between the two.
They wouldn't want to. They obviously wouldn't want to, but there are ideas in that pledge that they could use to make sure that on the ground they are still walking the walk.
Yeah, definitely.
When you say senior leaders, so what do you have to like? Do you have to have a certain job title? Do you have to have people reporting to you? I'm assuming that it's not just for like qualified patent and trademark attorneys. You can be a senior person in HR or IT or operations, but what makes that person senior?
I mean, I think we apply the title very inclusively, first of all.
Yes.
So if you, I think you can identify, if you kind of take the view that you have that role, then that's absolutely fine. In the end, frankly, anyone can come along. We just love the community, but the key people in an organization who make the decisions, who make things happen. So that it won't just be the partners, or kind of the board or something. It'll be lots of other people too. Certainly the events themselves are open to everybody. But the important thing was to make sure that amongst all the people, and that are the ones who kind of make things happen in their business one way or another, and that they actually they take responsibility for it, and they, using Andrew's phrase, they walk the walk themselves.
Yeah, so in case someone's listening and they're thinking, oh, does this apply to me? Can I do something? Then we know that, like, obviously look on the website, but it's open to anyone.
And anyone, the Senior Leaders Pledge is for anyone who's in a position where they can make decisions that are going to matter on the diversity front. So yeah, they might be a line manager in a team, all the way up to senior partner or chair.
When I joined my firm a long time ago, by far the most powerful person was the tea lady. So she'd definitely have to sign the pledge.
Tea person,
tea person. I'm so sorry.
But yes, if they're in a position of power, they are welcome to sign the Senior Leaders Pledge. And I imagine withholding tea is quite a powerful tool.
It's all that kept us going in the early days.
Brilliant. And Jodie, did you have any sort of final questions on the charter, or anything you wanted to add to the conversation? Or
no, just it's nice to know a bit more about the charter. We talk about it a lot in our IP inclusive meetings, and then you got the leadership side of it as well. But no more questions from me.
Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting to hear a little bit about it from you, Gwilym and Andrea. So, thank you for joining us and telling us what businesses, what they can do to get involved, and why signing the charter is important. And it's good to hear about the kind of still having the big appetite for change and for fostering diversity internally. I think that's positive. It's always nice to sort of end on a positive outlook, I think.
Yeah, it's really good, and that ultimately that's important for the profession as a whole.
Yeah,
it is going to make the profession stronger if we keep on working towards a more inclusive environment and bring in more diverse perspectives.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for being part of this, and for being part of the 2 earlier episodes in the series. It's been a pleasure to sort of host all the episodes along with you as well, Jodie. I feel like we both learnt a lot. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've learnt quite a lot over the last sort of few weeks or so.
Yeah, I definitely have. I was really sad. Like, I wanted to keep going.
Yeah,
I actually quite enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it's nice.
I'm very grateful to you both.
Having the diary to have it about once a week. We've been doing it, haven't we? For the last
it has. I've been telling my friends about it, and they're like, "Oh, you're famous," and I'm like, "Well, maybe in the IP world." But my LinkedIn has literally blown up since doing this. So, and I still get emails from people going, "Oh, I'm listening to the podcast. I'm really enjoying it."
Excellent.
No, I think it's brilliant you've both done it. Thank you so much. But I think we also need to get in a shout out here for Jane Wainwright, who is just listening in the background, but has done all the organising. She's made this happen. So huge thanks to Jane for that.
Thank you, Jane.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Jane. It's been a real pleasure to be part of it, and to interact with you on it. I don't know if you're going to come in and say something, but I feel like you maybe should. But it's great it's been great to work with you on it.
It's been good fun. I've really enjoyed doing the whole series, and actually, as Jodie said, I've learned a lot as well, and I found it particularly interesting actually going back and listening to stuff twice when I've been going through editing. I've learned more the second view, the second listen through. So encourage our listeners to do the same.
Definitely, yeah, and it's just great to know that people have been listening as well. We've been publishing them on the Managing IP website, and we can sort of see how many downloads they've had, and it's been good encouraging to think that we're getting the message out there a little bit, which is really nice. Right, great stuff. Well, thanks again, Andrea, and thank you to you, Gwilym, for coming on this episode. It's great to chat with you again. And thanks everyone, and hopefully see you at an IP inclusive event soon. And Andrea, how can people just get on the website, get in touch with IP inclusive if they want to? And
they can, of course, they can email me. Follow us on LinkedIn, whatever you choose. Oh, and send us some money if you've got some spare as well.
Really
Had to
important.
get that one in,
Really,
didn't I?
no, really important point. Really, they need the resources, of course.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure to take part.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.